Hello everyone and welcome back. So Lee, what are we going to be doing in this video?
We are going to be doing stuff.
Okay.
Lots of stuff. No, actually, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with the train patch and getting it ready to handle some more functionality that we need the train demo class to handle. If you guys have been following along up to this point and have a character running around in a world, you've probably noticed as you reach the edge and new patches are coming in and other patches are being deleted, the character snags or pauses quite a bit, and there's a hesitation. You've probably even noticed it in the video, and I think Jason's getting ready to fire this thing up so he can try to demonstrate it.
Yeah, I am because it was something that was very apparent in the last video. But I was just staying quiet about it because I figured we'd be getting around to it in this video or the video after. So it's cool that you're getting it in now. But let's go ahead and just start running in a direction, and we'll see my characters just kind of going to get stuck in a minute or just freeze. It's almost going to look like the Unity editor has froze up, but that's not the case. Here it comes here in just a second.
Well, technically, yeah, it has, but
Well, there it
for a
goes.
reason.
It's working,
Right,
and there we go. And now my character is back, and I like, what's up?
right. Now, what is going on is all of our patches are being created when we hit this new spot and we need to load in new patches, and they're being created and other patches are being destroyed. Now, this is all happening inside of a single update in a frame of animation. The problem with this is it's happening in the main thread of the Unity game that's being represented. That means when we do these operations, they're blocking the processing of everything else until all of these patches are created and all the patches are destroyed. That's
I'm gonna
not a
make
good
it.
thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it very apparent now. If you watch in the upper left-hand corner when we freeze, which will be coming up here in just a sec. There we go. Now watch. Doom, and then we can move again.
Right. And this is something that we have to overcome. Now, the probably not the easiest, definitely not the easiest, but the best way to handle this would be multi-threading, where we'd hand the process of creating the meshes off to another process and let that deal with making our train patches and then, send them back to us. In an ideal world, it would do all the train patch creation and bring them in, put them in the world, and we wouldn't ever have to worry about it. It would never block the main Unity thread. Unfortunately, with the way Unity is structured, we can't do that. We actually have to do some processing offhand or off thread, and then we have to signal the main thread when that thread's done so it can do yet some other things. We're not going to be getting into that. That's a very complex subject that will probably have its own series of two videos covering.
Now let me ask you this, just to
Mhm.
make sure I understood what you told me the other day. Now currently, starting with version 3.3, they've introduced a bug that's actually caused a problem.
Oh yeah,
But that's only while running in editor or just period?
no, it's only in editor, and nobody's really sure what's going on. We've not gotten any official direction back from Unity as far as I know. I have to check the threads again. I check them every couple of days looking. But basically, what's happening is when you spin off to threads, we're getting a garbage collection error that is crashing the Unity editor saying too many root sets have been created. And this error only shows up when you're doing something with threading. In my case, where I was creating train patches in a multi-threaded environment, that was triggering it. Most of the people in the Unity forum that have experienced it are experiencing the same problem when they're using sockets, and sockets use threads extensively in the way they work. So it seems to be related to threads. It seems to only happen inside of the editor. I've used the same code that it will crash the editor in my marathon run that took over 30 hours, where I actually had the character was gone, but I was flying through the world for 30 hours straight. And that's when I hit that 82 million square miles of terrain. But that was using the multi-threaded version of the build, and it ran flawlessly. So
But again, that was a standalone build that you were running in.
that was a standalone build outside of the editor, and it
Right.
ran fine. Now, the code broke not only in 3.3, I first noticed it when I upgraded from 3.2. The same code existed and was tested and developed with Unity 3.1. And while I built it with 3.1, I could run it in that environment for hours on end without any problem. It would
Okay,
never
so this
crash
bug.
inside the editor.
Okay,
It
so
came
the
with 3.2.
gotcha.
It,
Okay.
People first recognized it in 3.2, started filing bug reports, and it hasn't been fixed in 3.3. We still have the same error, so nobody knows what's going on with this as of this point in time. So hopefully by the time we get to multi-threading, maybe this issue will probably already be resolved, but we just won't know until we get to that point. But in this video, or these next upcoming videos as this one, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cheat. We're not going to use multi-threading, but we're going to use scheduling. We're going to basically set up our patches to be created and destroyed in a way that is going to minimize that lag hit that you get. Instead of trying to create all the patches in a single go, we're only going to create one patch maybe once a second. Now, our patches, and based off of our view area and our run speed of our character, we could create one patch a second and still have all the patches created before the player actually can get to the part of the map where they become visible with the camera's far clip plane, or at
Hmm.
least we can adjust the far clip plane in fog so they never see the patch coming in once a second.
Right.
But the nice thing is you'll see with this inside of the editor, you'll probably still feel it. There'll still be a little catch with the character once it starts dropping in patches, but it's not that big glitch that you get when it's trying to create all those patches all at once or delete all those patches at once.
Hmm.
So that's what we want to do here. But before we can get into the code inside Train Demo to handle that, we've got to lay some groundwork inside of Train Patch so we can set it up so it knows when a patch needs to be updated or when it's ready to, or when to hold any other patches from being updated, because
Okay.
we want to limit only one patch being created at a time in any given frame at the very least. We would also like the ability to space them out more than once a frame, but we
Hmm.
never ever want to create more than one patch in a single frame of the game.
Okay.
So let's get started with that. And I
Uh,
probably should
back
switch
over.
over from my editor to your editor. It
Yeah,
will
that
work
might
better.
help.
So, all right. Now, one of the things I want to be able to do is ensure that we can stop any updates. So once we've already updated once or the timer hasn't been set, I want to be able to stop any future patches from running. And because I want all of our patches to or not running, but I don't want any of our patches to update themselves. And this is going to be a static for all of our patches, because when this is set to true, I don't want any patches to do any updates. So we're going to make a public static bool. We're going to call this, appropriately enough, hold mesh updates.
So you have variables like S1, S2, LL, but but then you've got hold mesh update.
Yes, this is true. But when I'm using equations, instead of having an equation that's 6 miles long, it's easier to just abbreviate those to keep the equations nice and small and
Okay.
tight, and they're easier to read. This isn't going into an
They're easier
equation
to
at
read
any
if you know
points.
what S1 means. Or like earlier when you were typing in
But that's the point of comments. You can comment what S1
FH.
means.
This is true. Okay, I'm just giving you a hard time. Keep going.
Yeah, I know you are, and I'm trying to make it sound like a decent counter argument.
Oh, I got you. Okay, yes. Point
All right.
taken.
Okay. Now, we need a couple of local properties that we need to set. So these are going to be public, just in case for some reason we ever have to query them outside. I want to know
Did you
if
say local
a
properties?
no public properties.
Oh, I thought you said local. Sorry.
No, I said public. And
Okay.
if I did, I really meant public. So,
Gotcha.
but these are public properties that, if I need to query outside, I'm going to set them now so I can. What they are is one is dirty. This is going to be anytime I change or recreate the mesh and I've not updated it, I want this terrain patch to be flagged as dirty. So I know that this at some point this patch is inconsistent with what's being drawn on the screen and what is saved in memory, and it needs to be updated at some point. But I also need to know if it's ready to be updated. Because if we were to get into a situation eventually where we have multi-threading and we're offloading the calculation of this patch to another thread, then that thread has to let us know when the patch is ready. So when it gets ready and it starts doing all this calculation, it's going, nope, I'm working on you. You're not ready and you are dirty. You're going to be different. But I don't want any updates to happen until the thread comes back and goes, okay, I'm now done doing all the work that I needed to do. It needs to be updated and you're ready to be updated. So go ahead and flag yourself as ready to go.
Okay.
So to do this, now that I've got those three properties, where I need to go is inside of create mesh. So if I scroll down to my notes, inside of create mesh, the very first thing we want to do is we want to set is dirty to true. So the moment we call create mesh, we know that the mesh is no longer consistent to what it was and it's going to need to be updated at some point. The moment we go in as well, we want to say is ready to false. So saying we're about to start all these calculations, do not run the update, even though it's flagged as dirty, do not run any updates until I say go. So that's why we're setting is ready to false. Now, when we get to the end of the create mesh, basically it's coming in, it'll go through all of our processes. And I want to, if you remember before, we had our create grid, create mesh, and update mesh all in here. Well, I no longer want the create grid here. I want to call specifically when to create the grid. And I want to do it when we create the mesh. I also don't want update mesh to be called other than when I tell it to. So I'm going to remove that completely from there. So now we're going to set all that. We're going to create the grid inside of it. And once we've done all the operations, the last thing we're done after our new terrain patch mesh has been created is we're going to say, okay, I've done all the calculations. Everything's ready to go. Is ready is set to true. This lets the system know that this patch is ready to be updated. Now, how do we deal with updating? Well, let's actually put that after here. We need to have an update method. So we're going to have a public, and this is actually going to return a bool because we need to know whether or not something's been updated or not. So we're going to say bool or public bool update, and we'll skeleton that in as well. Now, inside of update, we're going to set a var, and I'm going to call this updated equals false. This is going to be our flag to let us know whether or not we've updated something. Now, we've said that if we've got hold meshes update is set, so we've got hold meshes update. So if hold meshes update is not set and we are dirty and we are ready, then go ahead and do the code inside of here. If not, then we're going to skip whatever code we put in there and then just return updated. And updated by default is set to be false. So if we're not dirty or we're not ready, or we're actually telling it the whole
Whoa,
mesh
okay, hang on
updates.
1 second. Let me pause
Yep.
this. Good old splicing. All right, so that was a quick splice. Hopefully for you guys, it won't have been as disrupting as it was for us, but that does happen from time to time when the system explodes with everything that we have running. All right, Lee, continue.
All right. So as we were saying, if hold mesh update is not set and we are dirty and we are ready, then we can go ahead and do some stuff. Now, what are we going to do? Well, we need to first set hold mesh updates to true. Not Tor, true. We're setting this true because the moment we start updating one of the meshes, we don't want any of the other patches to start updating at all. Now, this will make more sense when we get into the train demo and we start implementing that side of things. But basically what's happening is the terrain demos update is going to loop through all of our patches and look and see if any of them are dirty, and if they are dirty and they're ready to be updated, then it's going to update that mesh. But once we get ready to start updating a mesh, I don't want that loop to fire off the update of some other patch, and that patch also meeting the conditions and then starting the update. So this is going to prevent multiple patches from updating at any single time. So the moment any one patch starts updating, it's going to put all of the other patches on hold and they won't get updated until the next frame.
Okay.
So once we put all the other ones on hold, we can go ahead and tell the update mesh to go ahead and update. And we're going to set updated equal to true. That's just going to not Tor, true. So that's going to pass out to the method that called this patch's update that this patch in fact was updated as opposed to not updated. And again, that'll show up why we're doing that once we code out the train demo part of it. The other thing that I'd like to do is if at some point we wanted to do something like create mesh and make this public, like so, and make update mesh public as well. I don't know, for let's say we were going to make some sort of sculpt terrain tool that needed to call these external to the patch, then we could be able to do it. But that means we also want to ensure that the update mesh flags that this patch is dirty. So we'll go ahead and set its is dirty to true. So anytime any of this information gets reset, whether or not it's internal or external to the terrain patch, it does get flagged as dirty. So it has to be updated through the update.
Okay.
Or hold on, I said that backwards. I do that a lot. It needs to be set to false. The reason why is if we update our mesh, we've done our update and we're no longer dirty. We're consistent. See, I can get that right eventually. Does that make sense, or did I
Explain it. Explain it one more time.
All right. What is happening is right here we're setting is dirty to true when we've changed our patch.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've recreated the grid or created the whole mesh, the very first thing that we do is say, okay, things are wrong. It is dirty. So we're setting
Right.
is dirty to true. Then once we've met the conditions, meaning this patch, all the patches aren't on hold, this patch needs to be re-updated, or the mesh needs to be updated because it's flagged as dirty and it is ready to go. We call update mesh. So once update mesh gets called, we need to go, oh yeah, okay, your mesh is updated. You're no longer dirty. You are clean. So both the memory and what is seen on the screen, have the same information. So we're no longer dirty.
Couldn't we just take that is dirty and drop it down there inside the if statement on the update?
You could do that as well.
Just to
But
keep that
if
stuff.
you, well, see, the thing is if for some reason we did call this external, and once you're calling this, you're setting the object that is in the game world to be correct, then this this is being set to false because we've updated the memory. So if we were to call this from an external program like the sculpt tools,
Mm-hmm.
where we're updating the mesh
Mm-hmm.
itself, then it's going, okay, I've updated the mesh in memory and inside of the game. You're no longer dirty. So there's no need for it to be called from in here.
Okay,
This
good.
would call it double. That's why the is dirty is here and not down here.
Okay. And now you may have shown this, and I may have just missed it. But where is ready being set back to false?
Is ready is set to true
Yeah. Okay. Now hang on, hang
at
on.
the
No, I
end.
mean it's being set to false at the beginning of the creative mesh.
Yes, once you call
Yep.
create
Yep.
mesh,
I'm
it's
with you.
being set to false. See, it's easy to get these backwards.
Or
So,
for 2 seconds you drifted over to a piece of paper to write a note down. It's very easy to miss something and be like, huh?
oh, don't try to cover it up. No,
I wouldn't
it's
have
like,
asked if I was wanting to cover it up. I just wouldn't have said anything. I was
don't worry, I
serious.
wrote it and I still get it backwards. So,
All right, very cool. Is
but
this pretty much what you wanted to show, or?
yes, for the train patch, this is getting all the flagging stuff that we need in place, plus the update method that is going to be needed to be called from inside the train demo class.
Okay.
So what we're going to do at the next part of this is set it up to be used, because right now if we build this out, make sure that our create mesh is being done. If we build this out and go ahead and run it, yeah, it's not going to do a whole lot here in a little bit. It should create all the meshes, and our character at some point will come in. It's going to take just as long to create the meshes, unfortunately. And there she goes, and she starts falling. Here's our meshes. Go ahead and, well, I think I can still do it. Go ahead and try to frame up on one of those meshes.
There it is.
Yeah, that's not going to work so well for us.
Another one.
Yep. And the
Another
reason
one.
why is we've created the mesh object, but we've not, and we've even created the mesh, but we've not assigned the mesh to the objects where they need to be. If we look at this object and we look at the mesh filter, there's no mesh here.
Right.
And if you look at the mesh collider, no mesh. So we've not applied that information yet. So we need to now go back to the train demo and modify the train demos code so we can get our meshes back. And we'll do that in the next video.
Awesome. Okay, well, with that, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.